Hello everyone and welcome back to another supplement for Shadow Man. This time we're going to continue reading the official strategy guide, going into chapter 2, equipment and power-ups. As I've said before, this is exactly what's included with the official manual of the game. However, this time around in the guide we have the things in full color, so it's more pleasing to the eye. So, let's begin with the quest items, usable by both Michael and the Shadow Man. Nettie's file. We've been through this already. Produced by private investigator Thomas Deacon and given to Shadow Man by Nettie at the very beginning of the adventure. This file contains information that confirms to Nettie that the dark prophecy she fears is being fulfilled. Within the file are the psychological profiles of 5 serial killers that are connected to this prophecy. Killers that our hero will eventually face. Study this file well, as it not only gives you valuable insights into these killers and their methods, but it also holds many clues to the mysteries of the prophecy and the various puzzles you'll encounter in the game. The Shadow Gun. Nettie gives this to Mike when he meets her for the first time in her Hunfort. Hunfort? How do you pronounce that? In the Bayou Paradis. This is Mike and Shadow Man's choice and most basic weapon, and like him, has 2 different incarnations depending upon his circumstances. For Mike, the Shadow Gun appears as a regular 5mm handgun. In the hands of Shadow Man, it is a wraith-spitting Deathbringer. In Mike's hands, the Shadow Gun appears as a 5mm handgun, albeit one which fires an unlimited supply of hollow-point bullets. In this incarnation, it lacks the ability to slay the undead, but it does keep them occupied while Mike beats a hasty retreat. That is, if for some reason you end up having to face the undead as Michael Leroy. In the hands of Shadow Man, Mike's handgun becomes a fearsome shadow gun. When fired by Shadow Man, the power of the Mask of Shadows is channeled through it, to explode from its barrel as screaming wraiths. Should the Shadow Gun be used to deliver the killing blow on an enemy, it will die, its flesh torn away to leave behind the life force energy from its soul, energy that may be collected to replenish Shadow Man's own life force. This soul-taking ability is particularly useful in dealing with enemies and killers that have dark souls, since these creatures can only be killed by delivering the finishing blow with a Shadow Gun to release the dark soul within. Collecting dark souls taken from enemies will increase Shadow Man's shadow level, and if such an enemy is defeated, but its soul not taken, it will regenerate and return the next time its respective level is entered. That's quite interesting. I never actually thought of that. Usually when I kill an enemy containing a dark soul, I just pick the dark soul up immediately. Didn't know they regenerate, but it does stand to reason. And now we go to Luke's teddy bear. Given to Mike by Nettie in their first meeting in the Bayou Paradis, the teddy bear represents the link between Mike and his dead brother Luke, and as such, by focusing on it, Mike can pass across the veil into Deadside. This is first used by Mike to travel between the Louisiana swampland and Deadside by utilizing the teddy bear screen. As our hero visits other areas, additional memories of those locations are added to the teddy bear screen. This means that by the end of the adventure, he can instantaneously travel between all of the major locations he has visited. It's interesting to note that even for a game that was released this far back, there is a fast travel system. When we move on to the prophecy, hidden within the paths of shadow in the Deadside Marrow Gates, the prophecy contains a letter from Maxime St. James, one of the previous Shadow Men. The letter tells how he constructed the paths of shadow in Deadside and how he gathered together the most powerful and ancient artifacts and hid them from the sight of evil. Also contained within the package are a series of tarot-like cards that detail the ancient prophecy of the apocalypse. Read and study the cards well, for within them lie many, many secrets. The number of dark souls between each shadow level, the secret abilities of the voodoo items, and much, much more that will become apparent as you go further into the adventure. Of course, we have already gone through the prophecy, and it does contain valuable information for Shadow Man. And here we have the 3 parts of L'Eclipse. This is the most significant artifact in the adventure, one so powerful that when St. James hid it within the paths of shadow, he split it into 3 parts. La Lune, the wooden hilt, the female form astride the moon. La Soleil, the pommel, the male form of the golden sun. And La Lame, the ivory blade which unites all 3 pieces. Combined, the L'Eclipse is a finely crafted double-handed dagger made of wood, gold and ivory. It is used to make a shadow fall upon the world, and must be recovered for Nettie by Shadow Man so that he may use his powers and become the Shadow Man in Liveside. As you can see, the Eclipse dagger is more or less a bit like the 3 spiritual stones in Ocarina of Time, which you need to collect in order for you to be able to actually open up the entire game world. And the Book of Shadows, now this we haven't seen yet. Book of dark, strange and wondrous secrets. A reward for those who work hard to fulfill the prophecy. This is pretty much a the cheat code book. When we enter specific areas of the game, a message will pop up saying that a secret has been activated. And the cheat that we have activated will appear within. We'll see that when the time comes. And we'll move on to the quest ability items usable by Shadow Man only. The Gad. These are special markings, voodoo tattoos, which only appear on Shadow Man. The Gad, of which there are 3 types, give him protection against fire in all of its forms, which will allow access to previously inaccessible areas. The Gad are awarded on completion of specific trials within the Gad temples. First we have the Gad Toucher. The first of the Gad, located in the Temple of Fire, allows Shadow Man to touch fiery objects and perform certain fire-related actions, such as hanging on to burning ledges. Then we have the God Marcher. The Marcher allows Shadow Man to walk over hot coals and fire. This is located at the top of the tower at the center of the Temple of Prophecy. And the God Nagger. This final marking gave Shadow Man the ability to submerge in lakes of burning liquids and walk through sheets of fire. It is located within the Temple of Blood, the final Gad temple. It's interesting to note that these kinds of things would never appear in a modern game. These would be considered heretical, as they would be seen as spoilers. The entire game is spoiled in the manual, holy shit! But no, back then these things were put into the manuals and promoted as important features of the game, because just seeing them, your mind would create images and adventures in your head, which would make you want to play the game even more. Unfortunately, with the advent of the entire spoiler alert culture, all of this magic has been lost. Now everything must be as mundane and boring as possible when promoting a game, so that you never want to play anything in the end. Well, until you take the plunge and realize that the game you bought is just a piece of shit. And then we have the Poem. These are special wristlets that, once collected, allow Shadow Man to climb the Blood Falls in Deadside. They are located high up above the exit of the Path of Shadow that leads into the first God Temple, the Temple of Fire. And we move on to the Liveside weapons, usable by Mike or Shadow Man in Liveside only. The following weapons are operable only in Liveside by Mike or Shadow Man. They cannot be used in Deadside since they are real-world physical items. The Old Staple. The shotgun is a powerful secondary weapon for Mike, and there are 2 of them to be found during the adventure. One beyond the Fort in Bayou Paradis, the other hidden in the mortuary of Gardell County Jail in Texas. The shotgun, unlike the Desert Eagle, is limited in ammunition, replenished by collecting up shotgun ammunition pickups. And we move on to the MP909. Another secondary weapon, the MP909 submachine gun, adds rapid firepower to Mike's arsenal. As with the shotgun, the MP909 is limited in ammunition, and so Mike must collect 9mm ammunition clips. The MP909 can be found within the Gardell County Jail also, located the wrong side of Milton T. Pike. The 0.9 SMG. The third of Mike's additional secondary weapons is the all-powerful 0.9 SMG, which, like the MP909, requires a collection of 9mm ammunition clips in order to maintain a healthy rate of fire. It too is located in the Gardell County Jail, in the tower in the courtyard taken over by Marco Cruz. So it seems that all the arsenal, apart from one shotgun, is located in the jail. Let's see what other Liveside items we can find. These objects appeared in Liveside to solve real-world problems. They will only function in the Liveside level, so for instance, it's impossible to use a flashlight to illuminate areas of Deadside. Flashlight is useful for illuminating darkened rooms and corridors throughout Liveside. It is located just off the atrium of the New York tenement building that is the lair of Avery Marks. The flashlight, as well as the flambe, actually illuminate the areas around you, which was quite impressive for the time, especially considering the size of the game. Having real-time lighting adds to the overall graphical presentation. And we have the prison keycard. This is a master security card clutched tightly by the dismembered hand of an unfortunate guard within the Gardell County Jail. It will allow access to many of the high security areas within the jail and is essential to solving the area. As you can see, the old cut-off hand, which can be used to open doors, has old roots. And now time for the voodoo weapons, usable by Shadow Man only. These are ancient ceremonial items gathered together by Maxime St. James and hidden deep within the paths of shadow. Powered by voodoo, which are deeply at rates dependent on their actions, they can only be used by Shadow Man. They have two purposes. Firstly, they may be used as weapons. With a greater damage capacity than the Shadow Gun, they are weapons of mass destruction. Dealing out a killing blow with a voodoo-powered weapon will totally disintegrate the enemy, leaving no life force behind. Although they can only incapacitate enemies with dark souls, just long enough for their soul to be taken using the Shadow Gun. Their second and most important purpose is to cross barriers and solve puzzles within the adventure. These purposes are hinted at within the pages of the prophecy and explained below, since to solve the adventure you must master all of these weapons' uses. This is something I would wish all modern Zelda games would do. You see, before Breath of the Wild we had a string of Zelda games which had a lot of weapons, with unfortunately almost no use apart from puzzles. In Shadow Man, all the weapons can be used in combat and are frighteningly effective. So, we begin with the Asan. The Asan is a sacred rattle of the Voodoo priestess. When used, it fires long-range burning voodoo skulls, especially useful for picking off distant enemies and laying down a steady stream of fire against incoming bad guys. This is located in a small temple within the Deadside Wasteland that is immediately accessible once you reach that location. Then we have the Baton. This is a short spear that fires lances of ricocheting voodoo at enemies. Even when Shadow Man has run out of voodoo powers, its sharpened tip will inflict damage. Its secondary, more powerful use is that it allows you to teleport. Study the prophecy card relating to the baton. By plunging the baton into altars of the kind shown on the card, the baton will teleport you between similar altars on a level. The baton is located in the Chamber of Life, at the very end of the Temple of Life within the Deadside Wasteland. And then we have the flambeau. The flambeau can be fired as a weapon, although it uses up vast amounts of voodoo power to do so. More importantly though, when carried openly, the flambeau acts as a flaming torch to illuminate the surrounding area, using voodoo to fuel its light. It can also be used to burn through special barriers of stretched skin marked with red flame emblem in the Deadside areas. It is located within the Paths of Shadow at the entrance to the first of the God Temples, the Temple of Fire. St. James has hidden it behind a coffin gate requiring Shadow level 5 to open it. And the Ensign. This small shield uses voodoo to project a fiery voodoo shield around Shadow Man. If used carefully, it can prove highly useful in deflecting enemy attacks. It is located near in the Paths of Shadow, with the exit into the Deadside Wasteland. Of course, it is protected by a coffin gate, one which requires Shadow level 6 to open. And next comes a marteau. This artifact is a voodoo jawbone drumstick which, when used as a weapon, uses voodoo to create shockwaves at floor level, causing fiery tendrils to issue forth from the point of impact and seek out and inflict damage on enemies. Especially useful in melees or, when standing high above a group of enemies, fire the marteau's bolts over the edge so that they explode on the floor below. The other purpose of the marteau is to sound the trios of rada drums, depicted on the marteau's prophecy card, that are found within the God temples and elsewhere. By using the marteau to sound all 3 drums in an area, secret doorways will open. The marteau is found within the second of the God temples, the Temple of Prophecy behind a Shadow level 7 coffin gate. And finally, we have the calabash. This is a small gourd that allows Shadow Man to channel voodoo into a tight sphere at floor level. When activated, Shadow Man tips the gourd over at floor height, causing a massive localized explosion of voodoo power. So, this is your voodoo grenade, so to speak. The calabash, attained at Shadow level 9 from a coffin gate near the entrance to the third God temple, the Temple of Blood, also has a secondary purpose. It can be used to smash through Veve-protected slabs of stone. Study the prophecy card that refers to the calabash and seek out slabs that bear the Veve markings that are on the card. The calabash will give you access to many secret areas. And here we have the more quest-centric items. The Asylum objects, usable by both Mike and Shadow Man. Mechanical creations designed within the Asylum to operate in the real world. The Asylum objects work in both our world and the Netherworld, and as such, can be used by both Mike in Liveside and Shadow Man in Deadside. We begin with the 3 retractors we can find. There are 3 retractors in the adventure. These are fearsome ribcage-like keys that reopen the schisms within the Cathedral of Pain and lead through to the New York, Texas and London layers of the killers. It was the schisms that were created by Legion to project dark souls into the killers in the first place. It is now Shadowman's task to reopen the schisms with the retractors and hunt down these very same killers. Located and heavily guarded within the retractor chapels in the Asylum, you'll find a retractor within the cageways, one within the playrooms, and the final one in the Undercity. So, as you can understand, 3 schisms are locked, 2 are opened, which we can visit before we can obtain any retractors. And then we move on to the wonderfully named Violator. This is a devastating, arm-mounted, swirling razor gun, a multiple-shot, long-range weapon that fires massive bursts of Asylum-fashioned projectiles. The only limitation is ammunition. Violator ammunition cartridges are a limited commodity. Potentially, it can hold up to 999 shots. Holy shit. It is located within one of the experimentation rooms within the Asylum's darkest corner, the playrooms. Interestingly enough, the guy doesn't mention that there's a second Violator somewhere. I don't remember where though. And then we have 5 accumulators. These are large, black, Asylum-powered cells, throbbing with the same dark power, of which there are 5 located in the live side areas. Ultimately, they must be used within the Asylum's playrooms to gain access to the Violator. Oh boy. Jack's journal, which we saw during the introduction. This is a diary of Jack the Ripper, has seen in the introductory sequence and holds vital secrets of the Asylum. It is located within Jack's room at the very start of the London Underground level. You could do very well by making a point of retrieving this vital object as soon as possible. When you get your first retractor, head for the Cathedral of Pain and open up the schism that leads to it. Yeah, as if we needed the extra hint. And then we have the Engineer's Key. This is a lethal-looking arm-mounting device that is used as an all-purpose key within the Asylum to open doors and flick switches. It is located within the first area of the Asylum that Shadowman uncovers, the Asylum Gateway. And finally, we have the 3 prisms. These are the keys to opening the soul gates in Liveside, jealously guarded by the serial killers that constructed them. To obtain a prism, you must kill Avery Marks, Dr. Batrachian, or Jack the Ripper. Not an easy task, but one which will allow you to access the even darker reaches of the Asylum, beyond the soul gates. And finally, we have all the collectibles. The dark souls, of which there are 120. These form the backbone of the adventure, and it is up to Shadowman to collect these before Legion does. Collecting multiple dark souls increases Shadowman's shadow level, and as Shadowman takes more dark souls, he can go further into the adventure. This is an interesting gating system. Becoming more powerful, you can also unlock more areas of the game, which means that you have explored more of the game, meaning that you have gained more experience in playing the game, as well as becoming stronger. The Kado are 512, and they are everywhere indeed. These are small pots, gift offerings to the Loa. 100 of them are said to increase the strength of a man's spirit. To increase Shadowman's maximum level of life force, collect 100 of them and take them to the Chamber of Life within the Temple of Life in the Dead Side Wasteland. To use them, offer them to the Loa by placing them on one of the 5 altars, as detailed in the prophecy cards. There are a total of 512 Kado within the adventure, so as you can see, there is some leeway. You don't need to find 500 exactly to complete the game 100%. There's 12 more you can find in case you miss some. Then you have the Life Force Energy, which obviously has the wrong photo because it shows a dark soul and not a Life Force Energy pickup. Life Force Energy is released whenever a creature is killed with a shadow gun, provided that creature does not contain a dark soul, or whenever certain receptacles such as pots and barrels are destroyed. Depicted as a particle swirl, it rapidly dwindles if not collected in time. And of course, the Liveside counterpart is the Med Pack. Collectible in Liveside during the day, these replenish Life Force Energy too. The skulls. We've seen plenty of those. Skulls can be found in many areas throughout the adventure, though most are contained within receptacles such as pots and barrels. As with life energy, these need to be destroyed to release the collectible within. Collecting skulls increases Shadowman's Voodoo level, used to power the Voodoo weapons. And then we have the various kinds of ammunition. We start with the shotgun ammunition, with the brand name being Bang. These small boxes of shotgun ammunition must be collected in order to use a shotgun. Each box contains 6 shotgun cartridges. With only one shotgun, the maximum is 50 cartridges, increasing to 99 when 2 shotguns have been collected. Then we have the Violator ammunition. In order to function, the Violator requires Mike and Shadowman to collect certain ammunition cartridges. Each cartridge contains 20 to 40 Violator rounds, with a maximum of 999 rounds. That's a lot of rounds. Lastly, we have the 9mm ammunition. This ammunition is depleted by both the MP909 and the 0.9 SMG weapons and must be collected in order that either weapon can be used. Each cartridge contains 29mm rounds. With only one 9mm weapon, the maximum is 200 rounds, increasing to 400 when 2 9mm rounds have been collected. And we're finishing up with the Govi, which, while not necessarily a pickup, but definitely not an enemy, the Govi are extremely interesting and important items to the game. Govi are voodoo containers for disembodied souls, appearing as little more than strange tripod-like ceremonial vessels. Their appearance remains the same to both Mike and his dead side counterpart, but when approached by Shadowman, these masses of meat will quiver and emit a relentless, upsetting tone that signifies it contains a dark soul. Shooting a Govi in its form with the Shadowgun will cause it to burst horribly, releasing the dark soul within. Shadowman must step then into this dark soul to collect it. And I think that concludes all the items we can find. But before we end this video, let's see the anecdote from Acclaim Studios' T-side. The voodoo items in Shadowman are really based on actual voodoo items. For example, the baton is a short ceremonial spear, the calabash is a gourd which holds spirits of magic within it, the asan is a term used to describe the sacred rattle of the mambo, which is a voodoo priestess, and to protect them against fire, Shadowman must obtain gads, a form of tattoo or skin marking that offers protection. A great many of the symbols within the game incorporate the style of the Veve, the intricate curlicure markings that are drawn onto things to give them power. Quite interesting. It really seems as though the developers went to great lengths to make the game as authentic as possible. And as a final tip from the Shadow Masters, the baton. The most voodoo weapons are useless without voodoo power. The baton, however, can still be used to stab an enemy in its voodoo-less state, creating an obscenely satisfying "puck" sound, which, let's face it, is what life is really all about, I'll say. Alright, thanks very much for watching this video, guys. Do like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and as always, share the love. And until next time, take care.